Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am the Awkward Outdoorsman, as always. And being that it is winter in Texas and it's probably like 30 degrees, and I have not been able to successfully catch a fish in a while, I decided I would do a review on one of my favorite pieces of fishing gear, which is the KastKing BlackHawk 2. So the KastKing BlackHawk 2 is a telescopic fishing rod, and telescopic fishing rods like this are usually pieces of junk. There's not much more to say to it. I think I just finally wound up going on Amazon, like every sane person, and typing in telescopic fishing rod, and this one came up, which is the KastKing BlackHawk 2. Now, I was skeptical. Obviously, it's only like a $60 telescopic rod. The price doesn't necessarily have a factor. I'm no stranger to budget gear. I use a lot of budget gear. So the price is not what threw me off. It was more the fact that it was a telescopic rod. But then I saw that it was by KastKing. Now, if you are not familiar with KastKing, they are a company that does higher quality fishing gear specifically through Amazon or through their own website. So they cut out that middleman of having to raise the prices to make profit, which means they can sell, pretty good gear at a lower price. Now, no, not in any way, shape, or form sponsored or anything. It's just a brand that I have discovered on Amazon because I like to use budget gear, and they make some pretty good stuff. I've done a review on the KastKing Centron, which is like a lightweight spinning reel. I think that's the only thing I've reviewed from them. I don't know. I'll link that up there as well somewhere. They make some pretty good gear. So when I saw it was KastKing, I was like, this could be worth giving a shot. I looked at some reviews. It's got really good reviews. This particular rod does. And so I decided to order one. Now, I think I've had it for several months now, since, early September, I think is when I got it, early September of 2020. So months I've had it now, and I've used it quite a bit. If you've seen the previous video I uploaded, which was the surf fishing for ladyfish, I was using this in that video. I held off doing a review once I got it because I wanted to have a significant amount of time that I fished with it so I could actually give an honest review and say, yes, this does work, or no, this is junk. And I'm pleasantly surprised, I have to say. I didn't have super high hopes for it, being a telescopic rod, but I got it. And the way that this is made, most telescopic rods have free-floating guides, something exactly like this, right? Where the guide is not attached to the piece of the rod. It just freely floats and then kind of sits into place. Now, that's okay. That's how they get it to telescope back in, because the guide slides. But eventually, if you have enough of those, they'll start to get all out of whack when you hook a fish, and you'll wind up with a rod that looks like this, and you'll lose the fish. Or they won't seat properly, and you'll get this really unnatural bend that the rod has. It's kind of what I was expecting with this one, because I've never seen a telescopic rod that doesn't have that. But I get this one, and I discover it doesn't have all free-floating guides. This rod actually has the first 3 guides are epoxied on, just like a normal fishing rod. You can see here, this is epoxied on just like a normal fishing guide. It slides with the piece and does not move. Second guide, same thing. It's epoxied onto the end of the first segment. This rod's broken into 5 sections, I believe, that all fit into each other. So you have the section with the handle on it. You have this first section, and the end of that, this guide is actually epoxied on. At the end of this 3rd segment, this guide is also actually epoxied on, and the end of the 4th segment, this guide is also actually epoxied on. Then we get free-floating guides towards the end. So we get, actually, not even. Then we get a free-floating guide, then we get an epoxied-on guide, and then we get 2 more free-floating guides, and then the tip. So it's kind of a mixture of both traditional style guides, which means they're actually epoxied on, and guides that are not, guides that are free-floating. And somehow they managed to fix all of the problems that telescopic rods had previously, and they actually made one that works. You get guides that stay where they're supposed to. You get this nice even bend. And I have to say, once you actually extend this thing, it doesn't feel like a telescopic rod. It gives you amazing action. It gives the same kind of action a normal spinning rod would give. You can't even really tell that it is telescopic once it's fully extended. It doesn't collapse on itself. The guides rarely, if ever, get twisted out of place. You get this perfect even arch when you actually hook a fish or get snagged if you're like me. And it really doesn't feel like a telescopic rod at all. But then my thoughts turned to durability, because obviously you have a rod that's in a bunch of pieces. It didn't look to me like this end here, with how thin it is, it looked pretty frail being its own piece. I thought for sure I was gonna try to cast, you know, something upwards of 2 ounces and this thing would just snap. They say on the rod, lure weight 3/16 to 5/8 ounce. Obviously, me casting a 2-ounce weight with it was considerably over what they wanted, but I wanted to test and see how durable this thing is. It did not break, as is obvious by the fact that it's not broken. It actually performed really well, and honestly, performed with the casting of larger weights better than some, you know, more expensive rods I've had that are not telescopic. So I have to say that it passed with flying colors. It didn't even sound like it for a second like it was gonna break. And I have slung some pretty heavy lures, heavy weights with it since, and it has not even shown signs of wanting to break. All of the epoxy on the guides, still good. I thought maybe these free-floating guides, the epoxy might get dinged up on because, you know, they're crashing into each other, but it has not. It's still, nothing's chipped. You know, I don't really see any signs of wear and tear. One of my favorite things about it, you know, in the durability department, I don't know, is that it has these all metal guides, which Ugly Stick kind of started. And the thing about these is, with a traditional style rod, you have this ceramic insert inside of a metal frame, and that ceramic insert is not durable at all. As I said in the beginning, most cheaper rods have that as the problem, and so you barely ding it or something, and it just breaks. It just, the ceramic insert just chips right out, or chips, and then it'll cut your line, and then you just can't really use it. You gotta replace the guide. So I love the fact that it has these all metal guides. My favorite rod and reels have these, you know, things like my ultralight setup. They all have these full metal guides, and that's because they're more durable. Some people say, okay, but if they're bad quality full metal guides, the braid will just cut, because I do use braid on 90% of my setups. The braid will just kind of cut into the metal. It has not. I've caught some decent fish with this. Things that have put up pretty good fight. I've caught some trees and logs and things, so it put a lot of pressure on the guides, and there is not even a sign of the slightest bit of a groove on this, unlike an Ugly Stick that will sometimes do that. So these are super durable guides. I do really like the guides. I have no fear of those falling out at all. No corrosion on any of the metal parts after using it in salt water extensively. You can feel a little bit of sand, and you can kind of see definitely a bit of wear and tear from sand having gotten into the pieces and then scratched up the blank a little bit, but that's mostly cosmetic. I don't think anything cut deep enough that it will have caused an actual problem, and I'm sure with a little bit of finessing I could wash the sand out. So that's not really a problem in my book. The hook keeper looks pretty flimsy, honestly. It bends pretty easily, but it is not broken off. The epoxy is not chipped, and it does work quite well. The rod and reel seat, I'm not usually a huge fan of EVA foam, which is what this is. It does have a cork butt, but it does have an EVA foam handle. I typically like a cork handle, but EVA foam can be more durable, and I must say this is a pretty comfortable handle to hold. It's got this, you know, the locking nut has a little bit of, you know, fancy pizzazz to it, but it does lock very securely, even being, you know, one of those polymer plastic reel seats. When you actually go ahead and put a reel in it, I've tested with a variety of sizes of reels. You can see it locks down, and that reel is not going to go anywhere at all. And then it is pretty comfortable to use, whichever way you hold the rod and reel. It is a pretty ergonomic reel seat. As far as the actual action, I got a fast action medium power, and I would say it lives up to that. It is a legit fast action. It is pretty fun even to catch small fish on, like those smaller ladyfish, you know, pinfish, sunfish, bass, you know, all these fish that don't fight very hard. And then it really can handle just about anything. It has more backbone than my light action spinning rod that I've caught some pretty big fish on, and I've caught some decent carp on this. I've caught some, you know, bigger bass on this, catfish, all that kind of stuff, and it handles them with ease. even reeled in some logs, and it's handled those with ease too, which that's pretty impressive. So action-wise, definitely. Durability-wise, it's great. Reel seat's great, you know. There are not a lot of disadvantages to this rod. I love, one of my favorite things to do with it is you can actually rig it up, put the line through all the guides, hook your lure on the lure, the hook keeper, and then just leave it collapsed. You know, put one of those little patches over the hooks, and then you can just put it in your bag. You get to the spot, you open up the bail, extend out the rod, and you're already ready to go. There's no setup, there's no tying on, your lure's already there. So if you just tie on a snap swivel, it's endless, you know, just changing lures. Don't even ever have to retie unless you break off or you catch a big fish. So in which case you should retie. But it makes it really easy to just, you know, hike with a rod or just carry one with you if you know, kayak fishing. I love this thing for kayak fishing. If you've ever kayak fished on a lake or a river, you know you go under a lot of overhanging trees, or if you're like me and you're kind of dumb, you go under docks because either you can't steer or you chase fish in areas that you probably shouldn't. And you will break rods trying to go under things in a kayak because the rod will just get stuck and then it'll just bend it backwards and snap it off. If you have a collapsible rod like this, you can be fully rigged up. You see a dock, you go, yo, I gotta go under that. And you just collapse it down, put it in the rod holder, and it clears everything, which is brilliant. If your head will clear the top of something, then this is way below that, unless you're short. And so you have plenty of clearance for the rod itself. So kayak fishing, it's amazing. Road trips, doesn't take up much room. You don't have to worry about little brother throwing in like some heavy object. I don't know why your brother would be throwing in a heavy object and breaking your rod or whatever. You know, I would say for traveling and or kayak fishing and or just about any time you don't want to have to carry a full-size rod through bushes and trees or whatever it is you're doing, this rod definitely shines for that. It's become probably my favorite rods. I have it paired up with a Pin Battle 2 3000 size, one of the best reels on the market for literally anything. It's not all that expensive. I will do a review on this soon enough. Great reel, and it fits with this perfectly, even the color matches. So if you like that, there you go. But all in all, for I think close to 60 bucks, the KastKing BlackHawk 2, if you're looking for a travel rod or just a rod to take, or you're kind of like a minimalist like me, you like to bring one rod, kayak fish a lot, whatever the case may be, if you're looking for something compact and easy to take with you, I have to recommend this. It's a great rod. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go buy it. And yeah, it is really a great piece of equipment. I was super pleasantly surprised. So there you go. That is a review on the KastKing BlackHawk 2 telescopic fishing rod, the first telescopic fishing rod that is actually good. So thanks for watching. Please make sure, if you're not subscribed, to hit the subscribe button. I did discover only 1% of the people watching my videos are subscribed, which is kind of bizarre, but so, you know, hit the subscribe button and help my channel out. And until then, get out there and catch some more fish.